by the time we find ourselves in Novigrad in The Witcher 3, it's in something of a dark hour. A fanatical religious cult has swept through the city to the point where it's become an established church. The worshippers of the eternal fire persecute all who are abnormal, executing beasts and sorcerers alike. Even the simple crime of not being human is enough to see one put to death. But despite this vicious wave of persecution, Novigrad remains a bustling port city boasting a population in the tens of thousands, stemming from all echelons of society, from wealthy merchants and beyond all the way to the criminal underworld. Yes, despite being dominated by a faith willing to immolate, Novigrad has many less than holy residents, including one twisted serial murderer who tortures his victims, leaving them alive for as long as possible, only to endure more torment. Worse yet, the guards seem impotent to stop this monster. So why wouldn't this be a job for a Witcher? So join me as we dive deep into the side quest of Carnal Sins. In order to activate the quest that will put Geralt's skills against those of a cunning, twisted murderer, we'll need to complete the whole Find Dandelion arc that begins upon our arrival in the city for the first time. As it turns out, he's okay despite his best efforts to the contrary. Once he's finally safe and sound, he loops us into his scheme to set up and establish a cabaret. Something he needs a bit of a helping hand getting underway. The how isn't hugely important, but the quest ends with the grand opening of what was formerly the Rosemary in Time, a former brothel refurbished into a tavern now known as the Chameleon. And it's here where that quest, appropriately named Cabaret, will roll into the quest in question.
Guess everything's ready. So when's the opening?
Soon. We start our dress rehearsal in an hour. I just need to nip back home for my dress.
With Priscilla gone for a bit, Geralt and Dandelion have time to chat. However, as time ticks along, it becomes apparent that something is wrong when Priscilla fails to return.
She's late, of course. She knew how important this night was to me.
Of course she did. Probably just making herself gorgeous. Takes time.
So it's true. A woman's vanity knows no bounds.
Master Dandelion! Priscilla, she's...
What? Speak, man!
She's badly, been attacked. They took her to Valmerius Hospital.
Attacked? She's hurt? Geralt, come with me, please.
Of course, let's go.
For the time being, we only learn that Priscilla has been attacked. By whom or why is yet to crop up. However, our visit to Valmerius Hospital paints a rather vivid picture, not just of the manner of the attack, but the mind behind it.
Priscilla. Is she gonna live?
I'd say that's certain. Her condition's critical but stable. Beg your pardon, but you are a relative?
Relative? No, a friend. A very close friend.
Dandelion, correct? She uttered the name in her few moments of lucidity. I am Joachim von Gratz, head of surgery. Until recently, a lecturer at Oxenfurt Academy.
Enough of the courtesies. What are her injuries, besides her eye?
A concussion, cranial swelling, incision into her larynx, and scalding inside the throat and esophagus. Clearly someone forced her to imbibe a caustic fluid.
So this was no ordinary attack, no robbery.
Clearly not. It was the act of a demented mind, and not its first.
How can you know that?
I've seen wounds like this. They're not the kind one would forget, don't you agree? In fact, just this week a corpse turned up in the morgue with similar injuries. And no heart.
No heart? You mean that might have happened to Priscilla? Is someone looking into this?
This is Novigrad. Only the innocent burn here.
Joachim von Gratz informs us that we're not just dealing with a demented mind, but also a mind that's bold and has done this before. He puts Priscilla's wounds into context and explains that she could have died very easily, and the fact that she survived at all based on the information he's provided us with is a bit of a miracle. In fact, I'd like to know how she survived at all, but alas. The main takeaway is she clearly fell victim to a serial killer operating within the walls of Novigrad, and if we don't stop him, he'll certainly strike again. And so, Dandelion makes this request of us.
Geralt, I know I owe you 100 times over, but I need to ask you another favor. Find the bastard who did this. Find him and kill him.
Don't need any convincing. Come on, Dandelion. Let's think about what we can do.
I would suggest examining the previous victim's corpse. It has yet to be autopsied. Doing so could very well provide some clues. No need to look astonished, gentlemen. As a surgeon, I know the importance of preventive medicine. Rather than wait for this maniac to strike again, I'd prefer to excise him. Not unlike a tumor.
Great analogy, but this tumor's not gonna sit there, wait to be excised. Appreciate the help, but I doubt you know what you're getting yourself into.
I know perfectly well, and I assure you I can take care of myself.
Easy assurance to make, harder to back up, especially if you've spent your whole life wielding a scalpel, not a sword.
Look at this scar. Don't be shy. Any idea what leaves such a mark?
A flail. Morningstar, maybe.
What do you think? A blow sustained at the operating table? No? Let me repeat. I know what I'm doing, and I wish to help.
Think they'll let me into the morgue?
By the main entrance, certainly not. But you can also get inside through the sewers.
The sewers. Travel them often, Doctor?
As often as required for, the pursuit of preventive medicine.
Alternative treatments. Aggressive ones, I'm guessing.
Joachim von Gratz has agreed to join us in pursuit of this monster. Despite being a medical professional, if that nasty wound on his neck is any indicator, this is a man who can take care of himself. He also oddly discloses that he frequents the sewers in pursuit of preventive medicine, whatever that means. I'm sure we'll find out before long, but for the time being, von Gratz is ever so slightly suspicious. It's unusual the surgeon tending to Priscilla's wounds is our first suspect, but for the time being we have little cause to believe he's being anything but earnest, if not knowledgeable and direct. So I suppose we'll have to meet with him at the entrance to a sewer to find out more.
Well then, ready for a stroll through the sewers?
Mm-hmm. Ready and intrigued. So, preventive medicine you practice in the sewers. What's that about?
Think. Sewing up drowner victims can grow awfully tedious. Is it not better to nip the problem in the bud? I tried to get the temple guard to enter the sewers, alas, to no avail. So I took matters into my own hands.
At no charge. You damned idealists, ruining the market for us.
Hear that?
Been hearing it for a while. Draw your weapon.
Sure enough, von Gratz claims to be dealing with a drowner problem ring true upon our encounter with a few drowners. He doesn't mention anything about the water hag, but hey, neither would I. After a couple of scuffles with the sewer's friendly monsters, the conversation continues.
Priscilla, give it to me straight, no sugarcoating.
Her wounds will heal, but it's her voice that concerns me. Surely you understand what a terrible blow that would be to a Troberet. Enough to strip her of the will to live.
Any remedy for that?
I fear only your friend Dandelion can be of help on that count.
After a short mooch further, we eventually find ourselves in the morgue.
This is the place. Come, the quicker we take care of this, the better.
Why? Got somewhere to be?
Someone might disturb us. The coroner, for example. Or Reverend Nathaniel Pastodi. Very well. We seek the corpse of a dwarven woodcarver.
It is evident that Geralt has suspicions about his new medic friend, as he does seem to have an answer for everything that's a bit odd about him. He's seen conflict as suggested by his battle scar, he's uniquely equipped therefore to deal with this particular matter. He frequents the sewers to face a drowner problem that the temple guard conveniently aren't too interested in. And we had to sneak into the morgue because he wishes to avoid the coroner and the Reverend Nathaniel Pastodi. For whatever reason, it's clear he's not welcome here. Nothing he's actually come out with is hugely suspect, but Geralt has just met the man and is likely taken aback with his eagerness to address this issue. Anyway, after a bit of trial and error, we eventually find the body.
That's gotta be him.
This one's a she. Remember, beards are no indicator of gender amongst dwarves.
Okay, this time.
Calluses on the fingers, sawdust in the beard, clothes sticky with sap. Must be our dwarf.
Excellent. I trust you don't grow weak in the knees at the sight of blood.
Not a bit. Start the autopsy.
Now, I must apologise, the autopsy is quite lengthy, but yields a slew of new information.
Let's look at his head. Hair smells like it's burnt, like he was in a fire.
Notice anything else? That his eyes have been scooped out, for instance?
Those burn marks I see in his eye sockets.
Yes, and some grey dust. Ash, it seems, very fine.
Murderer gouged out his eyes, then put burning coals in the sockets.
So it seems. Looking at the wounds, it appears our woodcarver was still alive when it happened.
Let's examine the mouth. Burns, blisters.
Just like Priscilla's.
See this? Incision made into the voice box.
Indeed, so thin as to be nearly unnoticeable.
A small, extremely sharp instrument. Scalpel.
But why? The wound is too small to bleed, and there are signs of swelling. The murderer... I believe he performed a tracheotomy, so the victim wouldn't die too soon.
Let's examine his torso.
What have we here? Deep wound on the left side of his rib cage, and a scar the length of his stomach.
Let's examine the chest wound. Yeah, heart carved out, wound cauterized.
Wait a minute, there's something else.
An egg from an amphibian. A salamander? Scorched but intact.
I attended some lectures in herpetology as a student. Afraid I don't recall any amphibians that would lay eggs in corpses. So either Professor Cochrane was deeply mistaken, or this is our murderer's doing.
Open the abdominal cavity.
Due warning, it will stink of rot.
Once fought a zoogle up to my waist in sewage, so I doubt... Wait. Smells not rot.
Formaldehyde. A medical novelty. Heavily diluted, it's remarkable at preserving organic tissue. In stronger proportions, it's more destructive than acid.
Explains why there's no smell of decay, and why his throat's scalded. Look at his hands. These welts. Rope burns, right? He was tied up.
I'd expect so. No one could sit through such torture unless bound.
Speaking from experience.
Yes, that of a victim. Spent a year in the dungeons of Tretogor. Long story.
Some other time, maybe. See the callus? Our dwarf wore a ring, but someone took it off him. See anything interesting on his legs?
His right foot. The ankle swollen, toenails broken. He clearly kicked something very hard. Right before he kicked the bucket.
Doesn't strike me as the right time for jokes.
Apologies. We surgeons, we've a different sensibility.
Mm-hmm. And a different sense of humor. His genitals, we ought to inspect those.
I sincerely doubt they bear any relation to the matter.
We'll see. Pull down his trousers and... shit.
Syphilis, actually. Early stages. No sign of diffusion.
Think there could be a connection?
Only as the killer's potential motivation.
All right. Think I know enough.
Enlighten me, please, because I've still no notion what this is about. What the motive might have been.
It's some kind of sick ritual. You saw it. Burns in the eye sockets, cavity where the heart should be, scalding liquid, all centering on warmth, heat, fire.
A fire eternal.
It's a lead worth following. Any idea what his name was?
Fabian Meyer. And I'm Hubert Reich, the coroner. I've come to perform the autopsy, but I see you've done it for me, Joachim. As always, you interfere where you're neither needed nor wanted. Drag others into trouble in the process. Who is this?
A student. Lifelong learner. Got a couple questions for you.
Very well, speak. But be quick. Reverend Nathaniel has come by for an inspection. He'll be here shortly.
And now we have a new friend to interrogate, Hubert Reich, the coroner, whose name von Gratz omitted when he mentioned him earlier. Considering we've broken into his workplace, he seems quite receptive.
You old friends?
Hubert taught me the rudiments of medicine. Long ago.
And not very well. You've still not mastered certain basic principles. For example, that a doctor's role is to treat the ill, not save the world.
You've not changed a bit.
A compliment?
No, a statement of fact. 30 years, and you've not changed a bit.
In fairness to him, Joachim does raise a fair point about Hubert here. In 30 years, he hasn't changed a bit. Joachim also claims that Hubert here taught him the basics of medicine, which is odd and eyebrow-raising when you realise how youthful Hubert Reich looks when compared to him. It's no reason to jump to conclusions. After all, the pupil might not have taken care of his body since his education. However, it does seem as if von Gratz is, if anything, drawing attention to this fact, using Reich's somewhat condescending remark as an opportunity to deliver that line subtly, so only we'd notice.
Woodcarver's body. Where was it found? It's important.
Plan to investigate? Exciting. He died in his workshop south of the Market Square, just beside the gate to Far Corners. That poor Trebirets was attacked there. City's abuzz about it. But the woodcarver, Eustace the corpse collector, brought us the body. You should speak to him. Saw him just around the corner near... Oh, greetings, your reverence.
Who are these people? I believe I made it clear no one's to be allowed in under any circumstances.
Well, this is officially the most life you'll ever see in a morgue.
You did, but they're friends of the deceased. Here to collect the body.
Out of the question. Show them out at once.
As your reverence wishes. Gentlemen, follow me. You shall leave via another route.
I think this implies that Hubert Reich is aware of Joachim's activities and the fact that he came in via the sewers. Perhaps he's keeping a close eye on his former pupil and is aware of his tendencies to want to save the world. But it could also mean he didn't interrupt us and has been watching this entire time. He leaves us by saying that he also wishes to see this killer brought to justice and pledges to be helpful going forwards. However, despite his cooperation, von Gratz still seems to not like him.
Might have told me you know the coroner. We could have skipped the trip through the sewers.
I know him, thus I avoid him. I've said enough on the subject.
He's trying to be professional, but it's clear he harbours some resentment for the coroner, for some reason. I think it's best we press him on this.
I decide when we're done with the subject. What's your connection to him?
An old story, but if you insist... The student protests in 1242, you've heard of them? I led them. Hubert, however, denounced me to the authorities. I landed in prison. There you have it.
It's an acceptable explanation of things, even though it's not hugely detailed, but maybe we'll find out a tad more later. So let's attack him from a different direction and ask about Nathaniel Pastodi.
Nathaniel? Who is he?
A scoundrel. A rogue. Like every man who wears the robes of the eternal fire.
Most are scoundrels before they ever put on the robes.
True in his case as well. Before he donned the frock, Nathaniel was a torturer, delighted especially in torturing women. Later, Hierarch Hemmelfart appointed him to oversee the morgue. He deals with the temple guard, supervises cremations, conducts funeral masses in the temple on the Isle, and so forth.
Dream job.
He's a grumpy git of a former torturer turned reverend, whom von Gratz curiously mentions took pleasure in torturing women especially. You could theoretically eliminate him on the basis that we're dealing with a dead dwarf now. However, out of all of our quest-specific new characters, he's the least cooperative, the least interested in seeing justice done.
What will you do now?
Plenty of leads. Woodcarver's workshop, the corpse collector who found him, alley where Priscilla was attacked. Got work to do.
As do I. At the hospital. I must return there. But I shall keep my fingers crossed.
And I'll keep my eye on you.
Righto, it seems we have plenty of things to go investigating. But before we leave the good doctor to his lost causes, we can ask if he has any suspects.
These murders. Got any suspects?
No, Geralt. Though all in all I should have.
What do you mean?
By virtue of my profession, I know Novigrad's underworld better than most. Dozens of mercenaries, racketeers, bandits, and hired assassins have had their turn on my operating table. Rogues, one and all. But I believe even they could not kill in this manner. So horribly cruel, yet cold, methodical, with absolute precision. Concluding this overlong explanation, I've no notion who's behind it, but I fear them like hell.
Now, this may not at first seem like the most helpful response known to man. However, this is a warning that we are dealing with somebody more twisted, more perverse, more cruel than any of the X amount of variations of violent individuals he's encountered. We're not dealing with a bog-standard thug or even a trained assassin. What we're dealing with is someone or something viciously evil. And now we must let the man be on his way because we must crack on. First, let's go and speak with Eustace, the corpse collector, an ever-pleasant gentleman who looks like he's either immune to every disease on the planet by exposure, or indeed if he took a bath it would kill him.
You Eustace, the corpse collector?
Aye? How'd you know?
Fourth sense, I think it is. You bring Fabian Meyer's body to the morgue?
Fabian. Oh, yeah, I remember. No ice, no art, one of them, right? No purse neither, as I recall.
One of them? So there have been other bodies like that?
Sure have. Beggars, street urchins, and street walkers. One went so portly, I had to cut her into pieces to fit her in me wheelbarrow. Slippery sow, they called her, on account of her.
Some things are best left unsaid. What happened to the pieces?
What do you mean? Reverend Nathaniel ordered them burned. Every last one. Oh, shame that was.
Shame? Why? Actually, never mind. Another thing that's best left unsaid. You searched Fabian's body?
Whoa, I cast an eye in his pockets. Made sure nothing went to waste.
I call a spade a spade. You rob corpses.
And I call a prick a prick. It's none of your fucking concern. What, you tax collector? Piss off, mutant.
Talk. What did you find on him?
I had your wish. Triflings, baubles, gloss-beaded ring, handful of coins, and a letter. Look, vellum, quality parchment that. I'll wipe off the writing and sell it as new.
That's human skin. Priscilla. Next victim's name. If you'd given this to the right person, she might not have been hurt.
What the fuck do I care what happens to some Priscilla? We short of wenches in this town. Oi, fucking hell, what was that for?
For everything.
Despite having to spark out the socially unacceptable mud creature, we did come away with some rather integral clues. We already know the murderer doesn't seem too fussy about the demographic of the victim, but the fact that he names his next victim on a piece of makeshift parchment made from human skin on his previous kill proves these bodies aren't showing up as a result of the base instincts of a nasty monster, and are fundamentally premeditated. He also wants people to know he's active. He deals several signature wounds to the victim's body, and then identifies who he's going after next. This is the kind of killer who wants an audience. But what will this achieve? If it was just the thrill of the kill, why concoct such a complex and grotesque modus operandi? And why exponentially elevate the risk of capture by naming your next victim before you've killed them? Perhaps these dastardly actions are a means to an end. Either way, we won't get to the bottom of this if we don't crack on. So let's investigate the site where Priscilla was attacked.
A brazier. This time of year.
Grab him! Sis. That him.
How am I to know? Watch him, see what he does.
I know that smell. Formaldehyde.
For some reason, some poor townsmen attack us, mistaking us for the killer returning to the scene of the crime, so regrettably we have to hurt them.
Think you'll gut me too, huh? Up your ass, deviant! Hoes can fight back!
Calm down, I'm not gonna hurt you. What are you doing here?
Getting vengeance. Well, why are you staring? Have you not heard killers always return to the scene of their crime? Me and my brothers are waiting here to give him a warm welcome. For Priscilla. Almost did her in, the whole son.
I know. Here to look for clues and find anyone who might know something.
Fear I can't help you much. But I can tell you what I know.
You and Priscilla friends?
Friends? Nah. But she saw more than a stupid whore in me. Treated me with respect. It mattered. I was looking to give up whoring. Pick up a decent trade. But none would take me. Not as a washerwoman, nor a servant, nor a cook. Felt like a leper, I did. But Priscilla, she was different. Agreed to put me in her play, you see? Lots of the other actors, they were afraid on account of her jesting about the eternal fire. Whistling Wendy on stage, can you imagine it? Well, dream's gone now. I'm back to working street corners.
Sorry to hear that.
You could do worse as work goes. Or so I tell myself.
Priscilla wasn't the sole victim. You aware of that?
Oh, dearie. Course I was. This didn't start yesterday. Others have died like this before. Beggars, street girls, orphans. But who'd have a drama concern about them? Human rubbish. It's what the guards call us.
Recall any names?
They didn't have proper ones. Baldy, curly, buns. That's what folk called them. No friends, no families. Their bodies were burned long ago.
Whistling Wendy's information is invaluable. She mentions Priscilla may have blasphemed the eternal fire, but moreover she echoes what Eustace told us. The killer has struck many times before, killing peasants, working girls, even orphans, children. Anyone whom the guards won't lift a finger for is fair game. Curiously, Wendy also echoes Eustace's claim that Reverend Nathaniel ordered the bodies of the killer's previous victims burned. So he has a thing for torture, destroying evidence, and presumably, as indicated by his reverend status, is engrossed in the brutal thuggish Church of the Eternal Fire, whom Priscilla had blasphemed. And so, it would appear our primary suspect has manifested with a buzz cut. However, before we come to any premature conclusions, there's still more to find.
Man's footprint. The murderer's maybe. Weight on his heel, human. Took a step back. Priscilla's. Murderer fled before the guards arrived. Ran this way. Trail ends here. Strange.
On the wall this killer seems to have cleared, we can find a letter. A concerned citizen's sermon that reads as follows. Remember, good people, the light cast by the fire dispels every darkness, reveals each lie, exposes every unworthy and debauched soul. Not even shape-shifting Dopplers can hide from its light, not even witches and sorceresses, so adept at fooling the common folk, not the loose women who walk the street and fog men's minds with their charms. Abandon then the treacherous and immoral magic arcane, cover your bodies in modesty, and provoke no unclean thoughts, and the eternal fire will expose for you all monsters and sinners, or else burn you too in its flames. Concerned Citizen. So it would seem the Concerned Citizen, the presumed moniker of this serial murderer, is a fanatic of the eternal fire. This certainly adds fuel to the Nathaniel Pastodi fire. However, the killer's trail ends at a very high wall that even Geralt claims he couldn't clear. If the killer did indeed somehow manage to leap over it, the question stands, could the Reverend perform this feat? I'm sure there are ways such a skill can be explained, but alas, we move on. For now it's time to head to the site of the demise of another of the Concerned Citizen's victims, Fabian Meyer. However, as we approach his workshop, we're accosted by a guard.
Oi, Witcher! Coroner wants to see you. Been another victim. Told me to say the main door will be open for you. You're to come as soon as you can.
Unfortunately, the coroner's going to have to wait, as Detective Geralt is busy.
Anyone home?
Begone, or I'll sick me hounds on you. Molly, Striga, come!
Relax. I'm here about Fabian Meyer. Looking for his killer.
That's altogether different. Sit, you stupid mutts, lie down. Come on in. Slowly now, lest they bite you.
Charming as beasts go.
You daft. Even I'm scared of them. But better backing dog than an evil man at your door.
Got someone particular in mind?
Sure as shite. Bugger who did Fabian in. Soon as they'd hauled his corpse off, I ran to a mate who raised his fighting dogs. Bought these two mutts. Cost me a chunk of change. But I sleep sound at least.
So who might you be?
The Stiff's brother. Gus is the name. We ran a workshop together. Meyer and Meyer.
What'll it be now? Just Meyer?
Name it. I'll be closing it down now. As soon as I find a buyer for this shack, I'll head on to Mahakam. Be near my family, or what's left of it. So, what do you want to know? What can I tell you about Fabian?
Your brother have any enemies? Anyone dislike him? Threaten him, maybe?
'Twas Fabian who threatened this one last. Oh, he were a good dwarf, a craftsman like no other. But he were an incorrigible whoremonger as well. Whenever we put a bit of coin aside, I'd say, let's buy some tools, quality timber. No, he grabbed the purse and head out whoring. Took to following one in particular. He'd say, "'Tis all your fault, dirty bitch, human dish rag," and other obscenities. Don't rightly know what that was about. Maybe he was in love with her.
Know where I can find her? This Dish rag?
City cemetery. She died a few days back, quietly in her sleep. Her pawn said a fever took her.
Tell me what you know about the murder, in order, in detail.
'Twas like this. Had some work in Oxenford, and I was coming home. Saw a plume of smoke rising over the city. Thought to myself, blast it, gonna miss him burn another hag. But the smoke wasn't coming from Hierarch Square. It was coming from here. See the soot stains? That's where they burned our sculptures. Folk gathered round the blaze, and found Fabian here beside it. They'd already loaded him on the cart by the time I arrived.
Talk to your neighbors. They see anything suspicious beforehand? Hear anything?
Claimed not to. But even if they had, they'd not have helped. In Novigrad, folk give bleeding orphans in the street a wide berth so as not to stain their poor lanes. What do they care about some dwarf?
Need to look around.
Be my guest. Just beware of the dogs.
So it seems Fabian Meyer had a thing for soliciting prostitutes. Something that, based on what we know of the other victims, places him squarely in the crosshairs of our killer. An inspection of the site reveals bloodstains where they found Fabian's body, marks where it's believed the killer dragged something heavy, and a massive pyre filled with Fabian Meyer's work. And of course, the concerned citizen left us another sermon. I wonder what enlightened nonsense the maniac will put into words this time. Remember, good people, that fire can be both a blessing and a curse. Fire can warm with its flames. Fire can prepare our nourishment. Fire can drive off the horrors of the dark. Yet fire can also scorch, burn, and incinerate. That is why we must live in harmony with eternal fire and its commandments. Whoever fails to heed its lessons, whoever lives in ignorance of it, whoever mocks it, the same shall lose his life in its flames. Take my counsel to heart, good people, or you will reap the consequences of your deeds. Concerned citizen. In short, he's saying conform or die. Otherwise, the main takeaway from the presence of this sermon is proof that the concerned citizen and the killer we are hunting are one and the same, and another chapter of his deranged manifesto appearing at the site of Priscilla's attack wasn't just a coincidence. These letters appear to be an insight into the mentality of the assailant, and it seems he's motivated by frightening the denizens of Novigrad into turning to the eternal fire for guidance, not just in faith, but in life overall. With the letter thoroughly inspected, the time has come to analyse the workshop.
Mind if I go inside the workshop?
I've not even peeked inside since they found Fabian. But I'll open it for you if you want.
More bloodstains, but not near enough to say he bled to death. Unless somebody got rid of the blood, left a few stains behind. Formaldehyde. Doubt Fabian used it. Furniture got knocked over. This looks like it was kicked. Already know what happened. Fabian was in the workshop. Murderer attacked him there. They struggled. Fabian was overpowered, then tortured. For a time.
I needn't know the details. Truth be told, I hadn't the stomach for him.
When it was over, the murderer dragged Fabian to the courtyard, then made a pyre of sculptures, set them aflame.
But why? Why do all that?
To teach a lesson. To him, you, the whole city. Won't learn anything else here. Take care.
Having pieced together the harrowing final moments of Fabian Meyer's life, it's time to take up the coroner Hubert Reich's offer to join him in the autopsy of the killer's latest victim. Fortunately, this time we can head in via the front entrance and forego the drowner foreplay, where we will find the ever-youthful Hubert pondering over a corpse. Just like Fabian Meyer, this man's heart is missing. So let's see if we can learn anything new.
Geralt, right? I'm glad you're here. Held off on the autopsy till you arrived.
Nice of you, especially given you didn't seem pleased about my previous visit.
Because you came unannounced and in unfortunate company. I also had Reverend Nathaniel to contend with. Our spiritual caretaker has left the city on some important matter, and I know who you are, what drives you. I'm more than happy to aid your investigation.
Not fond of Nathaniel?
Very few people are. He's cruel and capricious. He stormed in here once, grabbed a scalpel I was sterilizing over a burner, sliced my back with it to the bone, because I had forgotten to lock the storeroom. Hard to be fond of someone like that, wouldn't you agree?
Von Graz told me all about you.
Ah, doubtless you've heard how I had the noble leader of the student protesters thrown in prison. But did you hear the protests were far from peaceful, or did he neglect to mention it? People were dying, Witcher. Those who rejected liberty, equality, and fraternity would be found in the gutter come morning. Their throats slit from ear to ear with surgical precision. Joachim had been my favorite student, but alas, I had to do something. So I reported him. Then I left the university and found work in the morgue, where none care about my past. Whereas Joachim, oh, fate's ironies. Years later, he was appointed head of the very ward I had founded.
How old's von Gratz? 50? 60?
53, I believe. Why do you ask?
You look a little young to have been his teacher.
Not surprising. For years, I've lived in the cold and dark, breathing the vapors of embalming fluids. In short, working with corpses extends one's life. Amusing, is it not?
I'm not sure I believe that explanation. However, Hubert Reich has shared some rather interesting details on Joachim von Gratz. Hubert implies his former pupil is a murderer, one responsible for killing with surgical precision during student protests. I suppose that explains why the two characters were so cold to one another earlier. To develop this on the spot, we can later question von Gratz on it.
Hubert told me about your past, even more vivid than I'd assumed.
I have not time for riddles, Geralt. Be straight or be gone.
Any truth to his claim that people died during the riots at the university? Died for your cause?
I was young and stupid. I thought a better future was worth any price. Even a human life or two. But those are past sins. Sins I've atoned for.
So he doesn't deny that people died as a result of his actions, but does claim he's atoned for those sins. I think it's fair to say these two characters have a beef that extends far beyond the realms of reconciliation. Whether or not that's relevant to this quest, however, is unclear. So let's ask Hubert about the victim.
Who's the victim this time?
Joris Aquinas, a lecturer in theology at Oxenfurt Academy. Found this morning at his home on a catafalque made of his books.
Any titles in particular?
It seems all the tomes dealt with the eternal fire. Treatises critical of the faith's doctrines.
Yeah, mortal sin in Novigrad. Let's start.
Gladly. The wounds conform to the killer's modus operandi. The victim was bound and forced to drink formaldehyde. Next, the killer removed the eyes, placed burning coals in the sockets, then opened the rib cage and... What's this? A parchment. Made of human skin.
A message from the murderer. The name of his next victim. Patricia Vegelbud.
Do you know her?
Yes. Even went to her estate once with... Gotta find her, now.
Well, that simplifies things massively. We know the killer's next victim is Patricia Vegelbud, who lives in an estate out of town. According to the coroner here, Reverend Nathaniel has also recently ventured beyond Novigrad's walls. Therefore, all evidence would seem to point towards the Reverend being behind the killings, and we must now rush to the Vegelbud estate if we're to stand the chance at putting a stop to him before he claims another life.
What do you want?
Need to talk to Patricia Vegelbud.
You think any bum off the street can...
Her life's in danger. Let me in or have her blood on your hands.
If you thought this up, and I'll let you in, I'll throw my arse out the door.
Always thought a guard was supposed to protect his charge, not his ass.
So be it. I'll take you to Lady Vegelbud. Just no trickery. Understand?
Oh, Geralt, what a pleasant surprise.
Not pleasant at all. I gotta see your mother. Her life's in danger.
In danger? Come now. I saw Mother this morning. She seemed sad, true, but in perfect health.
I'm hunting a serial killer, and I've got reason to believe your mother will be his next victim.
Why, even if it's true, our gods...
He's exceptionally cruel when he kills, tortures his victims, cuts out their hearts. So let's see how she is, just in case.
I find this all very hard to believe, but you appear to be quite serious. Please, follow me.
A fire fit for Bellatane, except it's the wrong time of year.
I mentioned Mother seemed sad. Do you remember? In fact, she's in the midst of a crisis of faith. A rather serious one. We'd been to Novigrad. Mother had seen the pyres in Hierarch Square, uttered not a word on our way home. She had all the holy books, insignias, reliquaries gathered, taken outside and burnt. Then she locked herself in her room.
We need to hurry.
This crisis of faith, blaspheming the eternal fire, is no doubt to grab our killer's attention. All we can do is rush upstairs and hope we beat the killer here.
Hear that? Calm and quiet. All seems to be in order.
We should go in, just to be sure.
You're relentless, aren't you? Fine. But wait here, please. Mother's certainly not in the mood for guests.
However, unfortunately...
Oh! He ran out the other door! Catch him!
It would seem we were too late to save her, and now we've got to chase the killer, who is currently fleeing only a few paces ahead. Sadly, the guards confuse us for the killer, and he gets away.
Halt! For I put a bolt between your eyes!
Listen, you got the wrong guy.
Save your trickery, taking you to the heiress.
Well, killer's already escaped. Lead the way, hero.
We got him, Lady Ingrid. Wasn't easy, but...
Lower that crossbow before you hurt yourself. This man is innocent.
Forgive me. I saw him running. Thought it was the killer fleeing.
I was chasing him, and I'd have caught him if you hadn't gotten in my way.
Out of my sight, at once! Mother! Why did he do this to her? Why?
Because she blasphemed the eternal fire. Only thing that ties her to the other victims. Ingrid, I know this is a hard time for you, but usually the killer leaves a note on the body. A note indicating his next victim. May I?
Very well. But you should be on your own. I do not wish to see her in this state. I do not wish to remember her like that. And let her be the last victim. Please.
With the killer in the wind in our mission to prevent the senseless loss of another life ending in tatters, all there's left to do is start again.
Bruises, broken fingernails. She defended herself. Must be why it took him longer, and why he almost got caught. Here it is. Sweet Nettie, crippled Kate's, growing bolder. Not just the name, but the place too. Won't get away this time.
Now before we leave this scene, there is of course one last thing we can find. Resting gently against one of these rather luxurious looking cushions, we can find another of the concerned citizen's sermons, and this one reads as follows. Remember, good people, that the fire devours everything in its path, sparing no one and stopping for nothing. The fire burns all sinners alike, be they paupers or princes, men or non-humans, weak or powerful. Whoever breaks its commandments, whoever does not heed the church's counsel, whoever worships false gods, the same shall be turned to ash in its flame. Live then in the truth of the eternal fire. Listen to its holy men, for they are your shepherd, concerned citizen. But it matters very little. We've gone from one lead straight into the next, as the next target is somebody known as Sweet Nettie at Crippled Kate's, a brothel back in Novigrad. If the killer has just fled this scene, should we hurry, we could have a chance at ensuring Patricia Vegelbud is the last soul he claims. After all, striking this wealthy woman far from the melting pot of Novigrad means not only are we dealing with a deranged psychopath, we're dealing with a very powerful individual, a very capable man, able to not only slip by a phalanx of guards, but also kill their charge and then slip away after the fact. You could even argue he vanished into thin air. But this time we'll catch him in the act and he'll have nowhere to run.
Sweet Nettie, where is she?
Upstairs. But she's with a very important client. Do not disturb them.
Chances are better than good this very important client is our killer. And, if all the evidence is to be believed, we're about to come face to face with Nathaniel Pastodi again.
No one will hear you, bitch. So.
You though? Whole town will hear you in a minute.
Yet again you disturb me, and I so dislike being disturbed. I was to play with Sweet Nettie, render her not so sweet, but I shall see to you first.
Try it, you bastard.
And just like that, the concerned citizen would appear to be a goner, and all that remains is to rescue Nettie.
He asked
if I did everything, and I said, for the right price, of course. And then he smiled. Oh, God, it gave me the shivers. And then he hit me so hard I passed out. I was bound when I came to. And he was hitting the poker in the fire.
Calm down. He won't hurt you anymore. He won't hurt anyone.
Right, well that's a job well done. It's time to head back to Joachim and tell him the good news.
Found and killed the murderer. It was Nathaniel. Caught him red-handed at Kate's. He was just about to cut into his next victim. Innkeeper wanted to keep me out. Important customer, he said.
I thought nothing could surprise me in Novigrad. Seems I was wrong. Deeply wrong. Thank you, Geralt. Were it not for you, this would never have ceased.
How's...
better, right?
Yes.
Did you take care of what I asked?
Yeah. The Witcher's way.
Thank you, Geralt. From me and Priscilla.
Don't mention it. Nothing a friend wouldn't do. She's talking again. Nice surprise.
Isn't it? Professor von Gratz told me her wounds are healing faster than a troll's. Not the most flattering comparison, but encouraging. Maybe she might even sing again someday. For now, we'll try performing as a duo. She'll play the lute, I'll sing. Dandelion and Calinetta. Got a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Sounds great. Good luck, Dandelion. On stage and off.
This marks the end of the quest Carnal Sins. We took down the killer, we're the hero. But have we? Are we? Soon after Carnal Sin's conclusion, if we head to the location of Triss's hideout, our hero complex will receive a devastating blow.
Heart removed, embers where the eyes should be, mouth burned with formaldehyde. Familiar sight. And a letter. You sought a servant of the eternal fire, yet you were blinded by its flame. Wasn't Nathaniel. Damn it.
Another body being dropped with the textbook modus operandi of the concerned citizen reveals to us that Reverend Nathaniel, though a sadist, was not the killer. It seems somebody, likely the real killer, set him up. Playing straight into our hubris, the real killer slipped away. But all is not lost. I mean, it's pretty lost, but we can still find out who was behind these killings. For should we return to the city morgue following the completion of Carnal Sins in this manner, the truth shall be revealed to us in a letter from Hubert Reich. Witcher, since you are reading this letter, you have finally guessed who the murderer was. Only after finding my subtle hints, undoubtedly, but still, I congratulate you, and at the same time inform you that you will never have the pleasure of meeting me again. I long deluded myself into thinking I could wake the citizens of Novigrad from their slumber, make them aware of their corruption and point them on the right path, that which leads to the eternal fire and the cleansing it provides. Yet even though, as you well know, I stopped at nothing in my efforts, it appears they will not bring about the desired results. Novigrad's moral pox has spread too far and too deep. It is now incurable and fatal. Though many consider me a fanatic, even I realize further shock therapy of the kind I have been administering will do no good. I will thus depart for another, smaller settlement where the process of moral decay has just begun, and where my intervention may yet stand a chance at stopping it. Forgive me for not giving you the details of my itinerary, but I fear you would try to hinder my mission. My regards, Hubert Reich, alias Concerned Citizen. So, this entire time it was the bloody coroner, and thanks to our hasty act of killing Nathaniel, he got away, only to start again somewhere else, only for more innocents to be subjected to his cutthroat brutality. Now, if you happen to be one of the many that fell into this trap, worry not, it was kind of done by design. The bulk of the evidence pointed towards Reverend Nathaniel being the murderer. He's a former torturer turned high-ranking member of the Church of the Eternal Fire. The killer is clearly fanatical for that sect, and was no stranger to torture himself. However, if you recall, there were various aspects to Hubert Reich that didn't make sense either. For instance, his claim that the reason he looked so young despite being the teacher of a fairly old-looking man was because he'd been exposed to the vapours of embalming fluids, which just didn't make sense. He was also able to give us a quick-fire rundown of the killer's modus operandi, and then pulled a random note out of his arse that stated the next victim was to be some countess out in the countryside, after not so subtly implying that Reverend Nathaniel had left the town for a bit, when in reality he was probably already at the brothel. If you think about it, he injected himself into the investigation simply to throw us off course. And now we're about to dive into what happens in the event that his ploy to thwart us doesn't work. The quest's true ending, if you will.
No one will hear you, bitch. Not a soul.
You, though? Old Town will hear you in a minute.
Yet again you disturb me, and I so dislike being disturbed. I was to play with sweet Nettie, render her not so sweet, but I shall see to you first.
First, gotta tell me why you do it.
For pleasure. Satisfaction.
Achievable with whores in a lot of ways, many traditional. Doesn't take killing them, trust me.
Who said anything about killing? I could stop at a few burns. 3rd degree, but still. This rosy skin will roast quite well.
Spare me your lies. I've seen your victims, I know how they end. You don't stop, not unless someone gets in your way. Like I'm doing now.
What the fuck are you on about?
Murder. You killed Fabian Meyer, Patricia Vegelbud, and many others.
You're mistaken, vagrant.
Found a message on Patricia's body. Led me here to crippled Kate's, to sweet Nettie. If you didn't leave it, who did?
I don't know, but I see we must talk. Calmly.
Who knew you'd be here?
Strangely enough, I don't announce these outings far and wide. There's but one man who... That's impossible. He treats even corpses with kid gloves.
The coroner. Said you were busy, that you wouldn't visit the morgue. Gotta go after him.
Go. But to Warehouse 12 at the docks. He's there this time of day procuring supplies. Formaldehyde. I shall stay here. I've unfinished business with sweet Nettie. After all, I paid in advance.
How you choose to handle this is up to you. You can leave Pastodi to his sadism, you can kill him, or you can use Axie to cause him to, well, free her. The way I see it, the guy's a monster, just not the one we thought he was, so I chose to end his life. And with that, it's down to a warehouse by the docks to confront the true killer, and come face to face with an unmasked Hubert Reich.
Run out of formaldehyde.
I underestimated you. You almost caught me in flagrante delicto. Now you've seen through my bluff with Nathaniel. Although, you've not divined all, I see. Had you, you would have drawn your silver sword.
What are you?
A vampire. Higher, of course.
Got a reason for killing? A reason to torture?
I thought you'd figure that out as well. The symbolism's rather obvious. Coals for those who are blind to the fire. The egg of a salamander born of fire to replace their cold, doubting hearts. Fire down the throat.
Yeah, symbolism's clear. What's not is why a vampire would kill in the name of the eternal fire.
Should be equally obvious. I concur with the Church's diagnosis. Novigrad is a fallen city. Its population amnesiacs to the very concepts of decency and morality. So I decided to remind them, in a manner they'd be certain to notice.
There are other ways. Could have set up a soapbox in Hierarch Square, preached from it.
How funny. That's exactly what I did. But none listened. Instead they laughed, threw stones. Give a thought to my victims. A lecherous woodcarver who'd spend his last copper on whores. An old countess who defiled symbols of the faith. A Trebirates for whom nothing was sacred, nothing above ridicule. They did not deserve to live. But their deaths could be a lesson to others. Awaken them, scare them onto the correct path, the path to the fire, to cleansing, to salvation. For you, I'm afraid it's too late. You are a man of little faith. I sense this.
But I'm pretty good with a sword.
Pretty good. Might not cut it.
Hubert Reich is no ordinary murderer. He's a vampire, one seemingly genuinely morally convinced by the Church of the Eternal Fire. In his twisted moral interpretations, he's been eviscerating lives across the city. Well, now it's his turn. The concerned citizen's reign of terror ends, and now we can go and dish out the true good news.
Found and killed the murderer. It was Hubert. You were right not to trust him. He was a higher vampire.
I thought nothing could surprise me in Novigrad. Seems I was wrong. Deeply wrong. Thank you, Geralt. Were it not for you, this would never have ceased.
What is left unclear is why a vampire would choose the Eternal Fire as his moral crusade, considering they'd want to end his life without a moment's hesitation. What's more baffling is Hubert Reich's setting up of Nathaniel Pastodi. I mean, Nathaniel was into some debauched things, so perhaps just because he represents the Eternal Fire doesn't make him righteous and therefore able to take the fall for these crimes. After all, he did deserve some form of justice for his own cruelty. As for Hubert, it's far too easy to dismiss him as a monster, misinterpreting human morality and weaponizing it towards something twisted. But I suppose the major point is, how much more twisted than the actual Eternal Fire really is he? You don't have to travel far to find the Church's own cruel atrocities, and though I'd imagine ultimately the Temple Guard would prove somewhat impotent against a vampire, especially an intelligent one, able to blend into the point where even a Witcher can't detect them, even they aren't hugely enthusiastic about putting a stop to this menace, as they turned a blind eye to Novigrad's underclasses. In other words, they created the breeding ground for such a monster to arise, touting their narrow perception of evil as the absolute truth, willfully or otherwise ignorant to their own evil deeds. Confronting a physical monster is something of a scapegoat to say that we've actually made an impact here. But the impact of these killings runs so much deeper than simply taking the perpetrator off the board could ever really compensate for. And every so often as you walk the streets, you may find yet more of the concerned citizen's sermons. Remember, dear people, that a fire once lit cannot be stopped, that it consumes everything in its path and only ceases to rage once all has been turned to ash. Men cannot flee this element, and if they bow before it, if they let it into their hearts, they too turn to ash. Search then your consciences and live in accordance with the Church's dictates, before the time for penance has passed. Concerned citizen. And I think with that, Hubert Reich's reign of terror is but a mirror for the actual Eternal Fire, brutalizing the underclasses in the name of morality, to which anybody who might be able to do something about it simply turns a blind eye, escalating, eventually taking on the wealthy, expanding the criteria of targets, until nobody is safe, just as the Church of the Eternal Fire themselves certainly shall. The witch hunts will never end as the fanatics always search for a new enemy. The margin of conformity will ever thin, and the persecution will never end, unless stopped. In that regard, the concerned citizen raises his own counterpoints. Whether that was intentional or not, I suppose, is for us to decide. Nonetheless, that brings us nicely to the end of today's video. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed. I also apologise for the odd audio blip here and there. I did my best to mitigate those issues. As always, I have a hard time getting recording software to, behave. Anyway, I'd like to dedicate this video to everybody who asked me to dive into some Witcher stuff. Hopefully this is a decent start, and please do let me know what you'd like to see me cover from the Witcher games in future installments perhaps. If you are new and you did enjoy this video, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated. Maybe drop me a follow on some social media if you feel so inclined. But of course, all of that is completely up to you. With any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.